Hello and welcome everyone to From Badges to Pathways, Iowa State's microcredentialing playbook. We're going to give folks a little less than a minute to trickle in, then we'll go ahead and dive right into our discussion. Today, we're going to spotlight one of higher ed's most learner-centered and scalable microcredentialing programs. And as we do that, I'll be behind the scenes to share some of the examples and resources that are referenced in Ryan and Tanya's conversation today. My name is Laura, and I have the privilege of kicking off today's conversation between Tanya Austin, who leads the university-wide microcredentialing initiative at Iowa State University, and our very own Ryan Greives, Senior Director at Accredible, who will be moderating today's conversation. Before we get started, a couple very brief housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and we'll send the link to each of you to view it on demand this week via email. Secondly, please use the Q&A box for your questions. We'll be taking care of those either in the chat and then saving time at the end for live discussion. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. And Tanya, thrilled to have you here. I know we've been talking and excited to hear more of your story. And I know a lot of folks here on the call are as well. You and the Iowa State team have built easily one of the most ambitious micro-credentialing programs in higher ed. 600 badges, 800 80 micro-credentials in just 1 year. That is outstanding, considering I know 1/10 of the work that went into that and how intense that is to get everything in gear. But what makes this really special is not just the numbers, it's really how you focus on recognizing learners across co-curriculars, professional development, and really tying that learning to real world experiences. And so what I'd love to do is just, can you take me back a little bit about what sparked this initiative, how the vision took shape, and even why badging was so integral and a critical part of what you were building there?
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I can remember sitting in the audience, a couple of years ago, trying to learn as much as I could about micro-credentials and trying to create our own strategy and vision and structure. So I appreciate the opportunity. But to start with, our journey really starts from a personal level from me, meaning in 2021, in my previous role, I was an assistant director in a business career services where I led a leadership program and charged with trying to get more engagement with learners. I inherited that program with about 15 students. And by the time I left in 2024, they had about over 130. And so I saw firsthand the power and value of providing digital credentials and verified learning and skills to students, and their competitive nature of wanting to attain more, share more. So that's where my journey starts on a personal level. And I'm still deeply passionate about what we're doing here. But then in 2023, the institution, and we are grateful to have leadership support on this, convened a task force, and we were charged with doing an environmental scan here at Iowa State to see who else was doing micro-credentials in kind of a siloed, rogue kind of way, if you will, kind of what I was doing. I was fortunate to be on that task force, and a result of that task force was the creation of my current role, so professional learning and micro-credential program specialist, as with the results of that scan showed that many across the institution were already playing or familiar or trying to do something similar. And so when this role was created, it was really my charge to create a more centralized approach to ensure we have a consistent user experience, that we have high quality. When Iowa State's name is on something, we have a high brand and trust that we need to uphold. And so that was the main goal, is to just ensure that what we're doing here is in alignment with our institutional priorities, and making sure that everybody had a great experience with that. So the badging, as you know, is a critical component, especially in this day and age, meaning the employment landscape is quite complicated and challenging right now. And so those badges really are used as a differentiator. So when I used to share this with my students, like, look around the room, everybody in here is earning the same degree. What's going to set you apart? And we're finding that a collection of degree and digital badges that share their story based on their interests or their career aspirations is really what's going to differentiate our learners. So that's kind of our approach.
Love that. I love the history. And I loved your call out right there too about the degree, and it's not an either or thing, right? And I think there's been a lot of commentary that's pitting these things against one another when they are complementary, right? And so I love how you think about that. I love how the program was kind of developed around that too.
Yeah, for sure. We were not trying to devalue, the degree is still the gold standard. That's what Iowa State is most known for. We're wanting to make sure our students are broadly educated and highly skilled. So that's kind of the goal and the motive around what we're doing here.
Love that. Well, I love to dig in a little bit more on some of that foundation. And I know as many programs, I will say, hopefully this doesn't, you're a very humble person. I do want to call out before we get going on all this too. Tanya is a big team of one. She has a lot of counterparts around the institution, but what you've done here as an individual, and the reason I highlight is one, it's unbelievable work that you've been able to achieve, but also I just want to say that for anyone that's sitting on this webinar, oh, it's just me, or it's just me and a couple counterparts. You can do this hard work, and hopefully today we'll kind of take you through and relate to that. But if we go back to the foundation of that, a lot of that comes back to kind of that framework, right? It's how are we going to unify this? How are we going to deliver this as more micro-credentials come on board or come online? What are we going to do to have that unified? If you could take us through kind of the advent of the credentialing framework. This is the visual representation of it here on the screen, and you can see some of the metadata or some of the attributes, if you will, in the credential itself. But if you could take us through a little bit of what some of those key principles or what went into that kind of the framing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So first of all, I am a unit of one, but I have a great support system. So please know this is a team effort. I have great instructional designers. I have great leadership that is backing and supporting. I have great faculty champions that believe in this work. And so those are all important pieces. So to start, being that the leader or the visionary of this program, it took 9 months of heavy lifting with research and understanding. We were not interested in reinventing something new. It was simply what institutions are currently successful in this space and how can we replicate it and make it applicable to what we're trying to do. So I have, I spent the first year with meeting with peer institutions, working with organizations such as UPSIA, ACRO, and just really immersing myself into what can be done, what could be done. And so it's a big world of micro-credentials. If you're in the space, you know that there's really no one right way to do this. So learning as much as I can, and then funneling it down to what makes most sense for us, and to start small with something really great versus trying to be everything to everybody. When we initially rolled things out, it was, we had 3 areas that we wanted to focus on, and they all seemed great and doable. But it's through the piloting phase that you start to see where things shake out, what's making the most sense here at the institution, what's getting the most buy-in. And so to be mindful of, you might have a great, big, ambitious vision, like you said, but it just takes leaning in, getting started, and understanding where things fall that makes the most sense for your institution. So it was a big lift on, the discovery phase of implementing a university-wide initiative. The biggest part of that phase is understanding your why. You've got to be really clear. And for us, it was about, we want to be able to recognize what our learners know and can do that are aligning with current workforce needs, right? As we know, things are pivoting so quickly. Programs of study have a really hard time shifting and adapting to needs that are happening within 24 hours. So we found micro-credentials to be a way to address that. It was more about finding what are we already doing on campus in co-curricular spaces, high impact practices that is going unrecognizable. Our students are learning valuable skills, but it's not on the transcript necessarily unless it's a requirement. And so that's, what our main focus was, is to ensure that we are providing recognition and verified evidence of skills of what our students are learning, both in and outside of the classroom. So when we started, one of the first things that I did was assemble what I call my microcredential work group. So I got representation from all of our colleges here across campus and some other supporting units to ensure that that's the foundation for collaboration, to help bring such a large institution together, rowing in the same direction and the same page. So that was really helpful in doing so. And then they have been my sounding board and thought leaders to help move and drive the initiative forward, based on their feedback and what they're hearing within their own colleges. I guess in terms of principles or guiding factors too, our microcredentials, what we ended up landing on, which is different than what I was doing in a rogue piloting phase with my previous role with the leadership program. But it was really, we need to ensure that what we're developing are in-demand skills, right? So that we are seeing evidence and need. Our employers are telling us, or research or stats are telling us that these are the skills needed in the workforce right now. And then to be competency-based, right? So skills that are specific, highly focused, and then to have quality assessments attached to them. So we are not in the game of providing recognition badges at all. It has to have some verification, evidence, artifacts attached to the microcredentials, because again, we have a high level of trust and brand that's needed. And so we wanted to maintain that, so.
Love that. Yeah. And if you haven't read it, we just published this past month, the 2025 State of Credentialing Report. And part of that was surveying employers and what they look for, and what separates digital credentials, and do they use them to make hiring decisions. And a lot of the things that you just mentioned are the things that they identified as important to them. They want evidence. They want it to be assessed. They want to understand what went into the learning, beyond just the visualization of the badge. So I think having that foundation, and then as we'll get into here in a minute, visually we'll show you, is putting that in the metadata of the digital credential, right? That's what actually helps the learner be able to tell the story, or have the badge tell the story, is when you build that, all of that earning criteria, the assessment, and all of the skills that are associated with it into the metadata. How did you kind of go about that teaching? Was that education across that working group or across the university when it came to why that was important in your overall standards, or was that known kind of from the early days already?
I think it was understood, just because the more I learned about microcredentials, the more I wanted to be, fully transparent, and again, keep building upon our trust that we have created already as an institution. So you can see here too, those badge images. So those are our, design sequences. So our badge designs do not alter from these, other than the title change and who is issuing them. So again, that's a big part of trust too. So when an employer sees this particular type of brand, they know that it has been verified. And it's a high quality micro-credential. And you lift up a good point too about employers. It's about language too. Like when I first started visiting with employers, and I'm like, oh, we're doing a micro-credential initiative. And they're like, what's a micro-credential? So you've got to understand who your audience is. When I start to share that what we're doing is providing evidence of skills that you're looking for, such as problem solving, adaptability, resiliency, then they're like, I'm in. What does it tell me more? And they're willing to partner and understand and use it as recruiting and hiring practices. But again, it comes with a high level of brand trust and quality. So it's very important that they know that these aren't just badges that are being issued. There's quality and thought and a framework around it.
Yeah, that's so key. And allowing to be able to communicate on its own as well. Another area that I'd love to dig into that is very unique to your program, we're seeing this more and more across Accredible and more folks that are asking us about learning pathways and how do I build them and how do I go about that. If you rewind even to our 2024 State of Credentialing report where we surveyed learners, over 1,000 learners, learners wanted these as well. They want this sequence of learning to kind of a smaller learning that maybe even ladders into some capstone credential or certificate. And so I think you've done a really great job. I think you've built so far 11 live pathways. If you could share a little bit about why that was part of your thinking and your model, and then kind of how that supports both the depth and, you know, the flexibility for learners.
For sure. So pathways, although not a requirement, highly recommended within our initiative. We don't want to be in the game of one and done micro-credentials, right? We want to engage them and want to inspire them to either expand a level of skill or grow in mastery of a skill. So we can have linear pathways or we can have vertical pathways. This particular one is an example of a vertical, but for learners, they have so many things going on, right? And what I can resonate with them is that I'm a visual learner. So when I see a path in front of me and it shows what I have left to do, it keeps me on task, right? So it's persisting these learners to want to go on to earn more and what could it get me? And here's a concise map for how to do that. So I like that it's that visual piece for the learner. At any time they can go in and see where they're at on the pathway. What else do I need to do to complete that? And then hopefully be inspired to pursue additional pathways or additional micro-credentials. So it's a visual map to help them stay on track.
Yeah, it's so great. And having the required and optional, optional models or modules, it gives the learner more agency in what they want to learn, how they learn. So I love how you've kind of built these out as well, and kind of the thinking behind that.
We love the customization aspect, right? Like some learners don't want to learn everything about a particular thing, but because they're pursuing specific roles or they have a personal or professional interest in developing a certain skill, they can pick and choose. And when they get to do that, they're more engaged, right? Instead of being a directive, of you have to do this and you have to do that, but rather they have some, like you said, autonomy to be able to choose what to pursue based on their interest and what they're willing to invest their time in.
Yeah, it's great. And just a shout out to our Pathways feature. What's great about how the Pathways functionality works that you can see here is as somebody earns even a credential on the credential page that the learner has received, they can see if it's part of a pathway. So they might have even came in just for one micro-credential and realize, oh, wow, this is actually part of a 13 micro-credential pathway, and it surfaces that right there for the learner so they can see, oh, this is a much bigger thing, and I could go earn these additional ones all the way up to some capstone credential and stuff as well. So I love how you structured it really well, but it's great to also have that for the learner so they're not having to navigate your whole entire course catalog. They can see that this is right there in front of them, and as you mentioned, kind of keep them motivated and moving along.
Yep.
So all of that, as we kind of alluded to with the, all that kind of infrastructure takes the right tools, it takes the right partner. What I'd love to do, I know there's many people even on this call that are still maybe issuing via paper or maybe their LMS badges. I'd love to take a step back to kind of talk a little bit about what were you looking for when it came to a digital badging partner, and then even what made Accredible that right fit for you and your program.
Yeah. So first of all, we went through a robust RFP process. We identified key non-negotiables, including cost, functionality, the ease or the visual appeal to a learner. The analytics and communication portion was going to be important to us. And then selfishly, I want to say the support, right? Ryan mentioned, I'm kind of leading this charge with external support, but I don't know what I don't know. So having that partnership to help make sure I'm on track. This is right. I'm thinking through this, appropriately and accurately, was extremely, extremely helpful. In addition, Accredible has been great with connecting me with other peer institutions. I have great partnerships now across several that I feel like I can reach out and garner some insight based on what their experience is. But also, looking to really grow this program, we wanted to make sure that the platform could grow with us. We didn't want to be stuck into a one space where we couldn't expand. And so some of the features like having a workday integration was important to us to scale when we're ready for that, or things like that. One thing that stood out to the RFP team was the communication side of the house, having email campaigns. So I set these campaigns that just kind of go on their own. At time of a student earning a badge, they get a customized email from Iowa State that congratulates them and shares the next steps on what they can do now with their badge. And then should we have students that maybe didn't click on their badge to receive it or accept it, then there's a secondary email that goes out and says, hey, don't forget, this is waiting for you, showcase it. And then certainly what I'm loving right now is starting to collect real employment outcomes on our badges that are being awarded. So it's great to have KPIs in terms of number of badges and number of engagement and things like that, and number of awards. But I think where the real value is going to come is when we start to see that students are acquiring internships more, or an increase in earning those internships, or post-grad employment opportunities. So I'm super excited about that opportunity. And the analytics, oh my gosh, I can't forget to talk about that. So I do love the analytics page. So I can go on a high level look and see to date, how many micro-credentials do we have? How many have been awarded? I can go quite granular and look at a specific badge and see the names, and then I can see where they're sharing these. So now I understand the platforms that are most important to market on, because that's where our students are going. So anyway, those are just some of the features that I appreciate about Accredible. And again, like I said, selfishly, probably the biggest is just having a partner, a collaborator, and making sure that we're headed in the right direction, and if we need to course correct it all.
Yeah, well, we've loved working with you. And I included a visual here, a GIF, so you can see not just their branding, right? It's your learner that receives it. It's the same look and feel of all your programming, your institutional pages. There you see all of the robust the metadata that's attached to it, as I mentioned earlier, from not just the name of the micro-credential and the description, but the skill tags, when it was issued, if it has an expiration, what were the earning criteria and assessment that went into that learning. And then you can see, it's very quickly, but over to the right, you can see if it's part of a pathway. As I mentioned earlier, a learner can keep learning or dive into a pathway that they may or may not have known that micro-credential was actually a part of. So I love the branding aspect to what you do with your micro-credentials, because once again, most institutions, most programs in general want it to be them, right? Not their vendor. They want it to look and feel like all the rest of their program pages, so their learners know it's part of them and their brand. So yeah, just so many things you all do so well over there, Tanya.
Yeah, we're very transparent with our metadata. Again, it's a quality and trust, right? People that view that badge, I want them to know exactly what that learner did, what were the learning outcomes, what was the assessment. So that's very important to us.
Yeah, love that. Quickly, I know we're coming up on time, but I really wanted to spend a little bit of time here, because I think what's so awesome about your program, and I know it's still in the early days, but 85% of learners are engaging and sharing their credentials. 75% of those learners are posting to LinkedIn. That means they're super proud of what they just earned, and they want their peers to know about it, or they want hiring managers to know it, employers. Those are great signs that things are working, and great visibility and referrals back to your program as well, right? There's no more powerful marketing that you can do from learner to learner, student to student, telling them about an experience that they just had. What I know you mentioned a little bit about email campaigns, which shout out, we're going to be unveiling here soon SMS engagement. So you'll be able to actually engage with learners via SMS as well, which would be great to interact with them. But how are you defining success kind of beyond that issuance? I know you talked a little bit about learner outcomes as well.
Yeah, so right now, like I said, our metrics or KPIs are about numbers increasing and badges awarded and gaining the momentum for the program, with now anticipating collecting more outcomes data. So we really want to ensure that the skills and the programs that we're providing and awarding these badges to are in fact valued out in industry. So that's the next phase that we'll be doing here. So as you mentioned, yeah, we're still really what I call in pilot right now. All of our micro-credentials are centered on programs that are primarily that already exist here on campus. We're just formalizing it and making it viewable for skills and to demonstrate and verify that through Iowa State. And don't get me wrong, though, we have some that, centered on AI that pop up and we get those going quite rapidly. But for the most part, we wanted to lean into, our low-lying fruit, if you will, faculty and units, anytime something new happens, they don't have the capacity, time to invent something from the ground up. So let's look at what you're already doing and how can we capitalize on that and make this really about the student and helping them stand out and gain confidence as they search for internships and post-grad work.
That's great. I know we have a few kind of takeaways, and I want to bring Laura back on here because I definitely want to take some audience questions that we hit. Tanya, I appreciate you taking some time with us. If there's one of these, I think some of these you've even hit, if there's one kind of big takeaway, if there's somebody that's, in your same spot, rewind 18 months ago, what would be maybe one of the things you'd want to pass along to them?
I'm going to say the first and second are my biggest lessons learned. Start small, but iterate fast, right? Like you can roll something out, but be adaptable. You got to pivot as needed. And so that's the beauty of micro-credentials. And for us, we're working in non-credit space. So we have a lot of agility and flexibility to be able to do that. But yeah, I am in the camp of, instead of being, having a lot of just okay programming, to have a few really strong, high quality, that becomes your blueprint. So as other faculty or units come to you and they want to roll out a micro-credential, you've got a map. But what I will share too is that there's no such thing as an identical micro-credential. Everybody comes in, and that's what I love about this, is because I learn a lot about a lot of things, but they all have a different vision. But as long as we meet our criteria, it can make their offerings unique and engaging for students. So I'd say 1 and 2.
Love
Start
that.
small, stay flexible.
Yeah. Great good takeaways. Laura, I know we probably have some audience question. Want to turn it back over to you if there is any.
Yes, plenty. And for those of you who submitted questions who we don't have time to address live today, we will definitely make sure that we follow up via email later this week. Our first question, you touched on this a little bit, Tanya, was around which micro-credentials or how many already existed prior to the formal program piloting and that you decided to badge for, and then how many micro-credentials went through the university curriculum approval process, if they did.
The only program that existed as a micro-credential was the leadership program that I talked about. And I had to kind of realign that program to what our new standards were. Otherwise, these were all programs that were happening, but they started to create a micro-credential around it and build these pathways, if that makes sense. And then the second part, I forgot what the second part. Oh, correct. So we do have a formal review process here. Again, because these are non-credit, it does not go through curriculum, but rather our work group that I created early on that has representation across each colleges. So it's a little bit more flexible and a little bit more speedier to get things going and approved. But we have 7 quality standards that my review committee ensures that each of the micro-credentials that are being proposed meet those criteria.
Great. That actually answered another one of our questions
Oh,
related to the
okay.
approval process. We'll maybe
Yep.
cover 2 more if we just can over the next couple minutes. We have another question around the availability to enroll in these micro-credential courses. Are they available to enrolled Iowa State students, or are they available to others as well?
Primarily. So about 75% of our micro-credentials currently are designed for currently enrolled undergraduate and graduate students. We have another 25% that we are working with working professionals in helping with up and reskilling. So in the areas of AI, things like that. So primarily, yes, they are for currently enrolled. And with that, there is no fee. This is considered a value add to their programming here at Iowa State University.
That's great. Thank you. And we have one more question. I'll scroll back up here. Around the process with the registrar's office and how this works along other software tools like Ellucian and Paradigm, to name a few.
Yep. So right now, again, we're in pilot phase, right? So we have ideas moving forward, but right now enrollment happens at the college or unit level, whoever's issuing the badge. And so it is manual at this juncture, which I believe we use Workday. And so that's what intrigued us about Accredible is ability to integrate to Workday when we're ready to start doing auto enrollment and things like that. So we're not working through the registrars. Ours micro-credentials are not on our course catalog. We have what's called a library of offerings, and students can see a complete list of all of our non-credit micro-credentials that are being offered and how to enroll for them. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we are just about a couple minutes over time, but thank you all so much for joining us today and being such an engaged audience. You can expect to see a link to view the recording of today's session in your inbox this week. One final thanks also to Tanya for being so generous with your time and experience. And lastly, I'll draw your attention one more time to the chat where I've dropped a link to sign up for our monthly newsletter. You can also scan the slide on the screen where we share success stories and best practices, just like the ones we detailed today, plus a lot more. Thank you all again for spending time with us, and I hope you have a fantastic week.
Thank you.
Thanks.